Hey, folks, welcome to episode 160 of the WP Roundtable Show. My name is Kyle. I do stuff at a place called Sandhills Development, and I'm coming to you from Jackson, Michigan, as I always am. I'm joined today by Tara Claeys from Design TLC. How are you, Tara?
I am good. I'm good. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me today, Kyle.
It's a real treat to get to chat with you on the show and learn a little bit more about what you do. We met sometime last year and have chatted a few times since, and I've been following your show and some of the cool stuff you've been doing and the communities that you're in. So it's I think there's a lot for us to chat about.
Yeah,
today.
I think we'll be busy.
I think so. And you're a very busy person involved in quite a variety of things, as I understand it, which we'll touch on in just a moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Before we dive into your background and learn a little bit more about who you are, Tara, it's time for our quick picks of the week. And at this point, I want to share an article that I enjoyed. A coworker shared it in a Slack channel, and we discussed it as a team for a while, actually. It was an interview with, let me get the name of the fellow real quick. An interview with someone who's a product dude at Spotify, I want to say. And he talked about side projects. And side projects is a common topic of discussion for people in positions like ours, working for small tech companies like we do. Many of us are developers. Many of us have just a creative side, and almost all of us, everybody that I work with, has some kind of a side project. It may be something that earns income, it may be something that doesn't, but it's something we all do, and so we talk about them kind of regularly and the role that they play in our professional lives and personal lives. And so this was a really lengthy and great article from somebody who, let's see, the guy's name was Tobias Van Schneider, and he builds products at Spotify. And the article is on firstround.com. It's Spotify's design lead on why side projects should be stupid. So kind of a catchy, goofy title. But the content was pretty rich and encourages really taking on side projects that are a little bit crazy and letting yourself try and do things that don't need to scale. They don't need to be realistic. They don't need to be grounded in reality and practical, and they don't need to even be finished ever. But you know, a lot of good stuff in there. So I enjoyed that article, and I encourage everybody to read it. But it's a long one.
So does a side project, does that refer to for someone who's got a full-time job working for someone else and they're doing this on the side? Or how would that apply to someone that already works for themselves? Because everything's sort of a side project in a way,
right? Yeah, one could argue that. I think the generally most of us have a primary focus,
right?
Even if you work for yourself, even as I did previously. I had my primary company that was paying my bills and brought in the lion's share of my income. But there were other things that I experimented with, which were separate. So I have never not had a side project. And most of the time, I have numerous side projects. Some of them are always just for fun, but a handful are really exploring where this could go with a completely open mind.
Yeah, that was my next question, is if there are things that you're doing for fun or you're getting paid for. So
sure,
I guess that makes a difference too, right? I see you've got a guitar hanging up there. So like, is your guitar a side project or is it a hobby? What's the difference?
Music. Oh, definitely music is always, and that's a ukulele actually.
Oh, okay,
no,
sorry.
There's a guitar on that. Oh, there is a guitar, right? That's
no, I think guitar. Above that, it probably is too small to be a guitar up over the door
right.
there.
Yeah, no, the acoustic guitar is over here. Music is definitely a
hobby. I know you play. Totally. I've heard you perform before.
How on earth is that? Oh, on the podcast.
Yeah.
Okay. Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's pretty goofy stuff. Anyway, what about you, Tara? Do you have any quick pick to share?
Well, because I am a productivity geek, I've been paying a lot of attention to rescue time lately and digging into that. So I get a report every month, and it tells me how I've been spending my time. And it's really interesting to take a look at that. So combining that with some other books I've read, like the 12-week year, and just kind of analyzing where I'm spending my time, which makes you pay more attention to your time, makes you think more about uh, what you want to be spending your time on. So it's easy to roll
Mm,
along and not really pay attention and just do and do and do, and then not really understand what's what's the focus of your day if you don't have one. So
sure.
rescue time, there's a free version and a paid version, and you can break it down and it'll tell you how productive your time has been spent, and it's kind of cool.
It's something
So
you've just started trying.
I've been using it for a while, but I just got a report that I was just looking at over the weekend to just kind of
Mm,
dive in a little bit and see
sure.
where my time's being spent.
Is that the kind of thing that you could see yourself instituting as a permanent part of your business and workflow, or something that you would maybe do periodically?
I mean, I think I use a time tracker. We were talking about this earlier. I'm trying to use that more religiously, but rescue time doesn't require any input from me on the front end. So it just tracks what I'm doing. It's not even just
Mm,
browser stuff, but apps too. So like if I'm in Sketch working on a design, it'll track that too, I believe. Uh,
mhm.
So, or maybe it just does it on InVision. So it tracks my time and I don't have to click anything. So it's comparing that to what I'm actually clicking on, right? And using my timer for is interesting to kind of see how much time I'm spending on Twitter or Slack, especially. And
Mhm.
that's you can categorize things so it's distracting or not distracting or productive or very productive to try to see where your time is going. And then when you're planning out your time, when you know it's being tracked, it makes you pay a little bit more attention to what you're doing. It's kind of like if you're, if you're all alone and you're eating something, you're a lot more likely to eat the whole sleeve of Thin Mints than if you're sitting in front of somebody. If
Yeah.
you know you're being tracked, you're a little bit more diligent about paying attention to what you're doing.
Well, you are right, and that's like just a very often recommended but completely appropriate suggestion for lots, especially solo business owners, people in a position like yours, where you're responsible for your own time. You're
Yeah.
accountable to nobody but yourself. Uh, just be on top of that sort of thing is important. And when you describe it, it just makes me think about how maybe this isn't um, emphasized enough, but tracking time for that purpose is quite different from tracking for like project billable uh,
Right.
purposes, or like as an employee. They're both called time tracking, but they're quite different,
It
really.
is, right. I'm not doing this necessarily for a billable or profit reason. Most of the work that I do is not billable on the hour anymore anyway. But it's helped me because I've often felt so stressed, like I have so much to do and don't have enough time to do it in. And when you look at where you're spending your time and you plan it out more strictly, you can sort of say, okay, well, then I don't actually have to be at my desk from 8 in the morning till, sorry, my dog, till 6 or 7 at night. I can actually, you know, go to the gym at 9:30 and take a class if I want to. I'm gonna mute myself really quickly while you talk so I can shut
Sure.
my door.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's an important lesson for us to think about a little bit, and the tools for tracking our time for the purposes of reporting as an employee or as a contractor on a project, totally different than the tools that one would select for just being accountable to yourself and monitoring your
Mhm.
own, just the way that you're spending your day. Um, I haven't seen any tools, and I'm not sure that one could exist which could do both effectively. It's one or the other, really.
Yeah, I think it's trying to get in the habit of using the tools and paying attention to it. Just having it top of mind is helpful.
Yeah,
So,
that's
yeah.
cool. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
let's talk a little bit about your background, Tara.
Okay.
I want to understand kind of where you came from, how you got to where you are, And where I really like to start typically is the point at which you, when you were younger, kind of decided a direction to take. You said to yourself, I think this is where I want to go with my life, what my skills are suited for, what I'm interested in, and I'm going to go out and try and do that. So take us to that point in your life. What were you interested in? How did you do that?
Wow. Okay. Well, I'm old, so that's that's going to take a while.
We don't need the whole life story, but give us the,
No,
set that
so
scene a little.
I've always had like marketing entrepreneurial interest. I studied communications and fine arts in college and decided I wanted to go into advertising. So I did that for a while in marketing. And I've always been sort of artistic, but didn't do anything necessarily formally with art. And then worked in advertising and marketing for a few years, and then had my first child and did not want to go back to working in the corporate world anymore. So wanted to stay home and be a mom. And my husband worked really long hours. So fortunately was able to make that choice. When we took the numbers down to my salary versus daycare, it was not that much different. So I was really fortunate to be able to stay home, and I loved being a mom. I still am a mom. So I have two kids, and they're both grown and gone now in college. And so I've been home with them the whole time, but I sort of started a little cottage industry business when my son was born with some artwork that I created. And that was before computers, really. But then sort of learned how to use Photoshop and computers and printers, and grew without really any plan into a stationery business that I had at home, where I would do custom little artwork for people. And that grew into Christmas cards. And then tiny prints came along, and I had a big giant paper cutter and a big giant printer, and Christmas season got really stressful. So around 2010, I decided to stop that. And I had built a couple of websites using Front Page. I had my stationery business. I had just hundreds and hundreds of illustrations that I had done that were all on my website, and you could sort of pick the head and pick the body for the different characters. There are some other things like that out there, and it wasn't automated at all. But so I had had some experience with the web, and I love technology, so kind of taught myself not very well, and did not discover WordPress. I discovered WordPress around that time, but I didn't discover the WordPress community for a few years, like 3 years. So for the first few years, I didn't know what I was doing. I was following some tutorials and trying to learn in a really inefficient way, CSS and HTML. And then once I discovered WordPress, then, like everybody else says, once I went to a WordCamp, life changed, and really became fascinated by everything that WordPress could do and the community. And so that's transitioned as my kids have gotten older, and have just really embraced not just what I can do as a provider of digital experience and presence for my clients, but also what role I can play in the community to satisfy my own need to have some connection with people, to learn, to teach, to just make people feel welcome. And yeah, so that's me.
That's cool. I love stories of someone just finding an outlet for their creativity and just turning that into an occupation, and just really developing a skill and creating awesome things long term. Just finding a way to just constantly be able to express one's creativity and put those skills to good use. So that's really cool. Let's talk about kind of like the formation evolution of your actual business. You started to pick up some clients. It grew kind of organically from the
Yeah.
sounds of things, and you started making websites for people. Now you're running Design TLC with a couple people working for you.
Yeah.
So maybe describe first like the current iteration of your business, how it functions, and who you serve.
So I have, I was telling you earlier, I listened way back to an episode that you recorded with Angie Meeker a few years ago, and similar to her, I find that the current iteration of my business is wanting to be a little bit more strategic, or a lot more strategic, with the websites that I'm working on for clients who are more interested in what their websites can do for them. Whereas up until now, they've been very much, I just want to build the site and maintain it for you, and you never look at it or pay attention to what it's doing. You don't use Google Analytics, sort of one and done, quick and easy. And that's great, but it's also not super satisfying in the long term. And there's not, when you have a client that's not invested in what their website can do, they just want to have one. Your relationship with them is not very consistent. So they may contact you every now and then, but to try to have a longer term relationship with clients is something that I think that I want. But then sometimes it's also super easy to just build a site and walk away and be done as well. So I walk that line a little bit, but I think that I'm really moving more toward larger, more strategic goals, seeing what I'm learning some SEO, seeing what we can track, what we can measure in websites, which I've never really done before, in terms of activity and events that are happening, clicking on videos or filling out contact forms or signing up for email lists, those types of things that I've never really measured before. It's a little bit intimidating, but I think I'm ready to try it. And I have another company as well called Nice Work that I formed a couple of years ago with a colleague here who is a designer. And so she's really been learning a lot about discovery and branding and business development. So working together has been really fulfilling in that regard too, because when you have someone else that's exploring something a little bit more deeply, it expands your horizons a lot. So that's helped me, not just with Nice Work, but with Design TLC as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
You talk a little bit about your current vision for the company, where you want it to go, or maybe not go a little bit. Sounds like it's very grounded in reality, very strategic, you said. Looking back over the years that you've been doing this to earn a living, were there different visions that you had? Were there times in your business where you were envisioning like growing this direction or that direction, or to this size, or to not? But any moments that stand out to you where the vision was starkly different than what it is now?
No, because I never really had a vision. I think people talk about being the accidental entrepreneur, and for sure that's where I found myself. I have a network here. There's an organization called awesomewomen.org. Some friends of mine formed that a few years ago, and part of that, there was an accountability group. And I remember for the first time, the person leading that, her name's Maura Fredericks, she asked us to fill out all these worksheets about goals and things. And I had never thought about that, never done that before. And so we met like a little mastermind accountability group for a few months. And so out of that, I ended up hiring an intern who still works for me now, 2.5 years later. She's graduated from college. And so I always said I didn't want to have an employee. I didn't want to have any employees. I didn't want to deal with office space. I didn't want to deal with payroll. I didn't want to deal with any of that. And so now I find myself having an employee on payroll for 2.5 years, and how much that's changed my workflow and my business is, it's significant. So it's not something I ever planned. It's not a vision I ever wanted really, but it's something I kind of hesitantly tested, and it worked. So maybe that'll happen with this next thing. I don't know.
Mm.
Yeah.
Have you, well, you've been helping clients for a while now, and one of the most fun things to talk about is bad experiences.
Yeah.
Have there been any that were particularly formative, like those moments that made you like you question that you even wanted to keep doing this, or that made you like institute very drastic changes in your business, or that just made you look forward to the end of your workday and the end of a project? Any of those that stand out?
Yeah, or sure, that's something that keeps you up at night. I spoke at WordCamp Lancaster this weekend about a bad experience that I had that prompted me to write a blog post and investigate the idea of being nice, because I've always thought of myself or tried to be nice, and it's probably the worst thing that can happen to me is to be misunderstood. I hate that feeling that somebody's taken, that I've said something or done something that someone has misunderstood or taken the wrong way. It's never my intention. I always want to be nice. And so I did have one client who just was not nice, and just all capital letter email. And it was the first time I had had that happen. And I had some red flags before I even started working with them that I should have paid attention to. But I really liked their establishment and how it would look on my portfolio. So I went down that road and built something for them. And they were just extremely impatient and demanding and not respectful. And so I found it really hard to respond to that in a way that was firm and that was being kind to myself, and also, ending the relationship in a way that wasn't burning bridges, which was really hard because they were nasty. So I think I was able to do that and walk away from it without losing more than a little tiny bit of money that they owed me. But it was a good experience for me in setting up expectations and communicating more clearly in the outset with clients, and trusting your gut and not just taking something because you feel that it's going to look good in your portfolio, or because because you need work, but keeping in mind what the value of that could be if it's not a good relationship. So setting up processes, contracts, and paying a lot more attention to the scope, and communicating throughout a process with clients about expectations and about each step of the way over and over again, because nobody really pays a lot of attention to email. They don't read it if it's really long. So you have to kind of tell them more than one time. So definitely that has impacted my approach to communicating with clients. Yeah.
That's a great one. Awesome. Do you, for anybody listening, like maybe time travel to Tara from the past, or to somebody else in that similar position who hasn't had a similar experience, despite the fact that you say in the end it was a good experience, what advice would you have to someone that they may avoid such experiences? I think you're like taking project for the wrong reasons is a good example that one could extract from what you said.
Yeah, and communicating. I now have templates that I use to I customize them for clients, but let's say I just sent a design prototype to a client for final design approval, and it says in there really clearly, "Hey, this is great. We're so excited. We're moving on to development now. This is what this means. If you change the layout, if you change the colors, if you change the fonts, and if you change anything more than some minor copy, and let's say we haven't finalized this image yet, so there are a few things that I would list that are still included, but if you change any of these other things, that's going to be a change order and there's going to be a cost." So being really clear and nice about it. If you do it up front like that, then it's a lot easier to maintain a really pleasant, fun, happy, enthusiastic, positive relationship with your client than if you don't communicate that, and then you find yourself stuck having to go back to the client and say, "Oh gosh, you just made these changes, and you might not remember, but way back in the contract 3 months ago, there was a line that said that this was going to cost you something." It's not nice to yourself. It's not nice to your client to have to go through that awkwardness. So trying to it's all about communication, setting expectations. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good advice. I always found more success being proactive versus reactive in every relationship. The more you communicate to them before they encounter the issues, the easier those are to deal with.
Right, for sure.
Yeah, good story, and thanks for sharing. So some of the other things you do, you talk about the couple businesses that you're running.
Yeah.
You also speak at events, which is pretty cool, and participate, I think, in your local WordPress community, if I remember right. It's in the DC area.
We have a really big WordPress community here, and so I go to all of those meetups in DC, and then I also have a little offshoot of that I have right over the river here in Virginia once a month. That's just an Arlington, Northern Virginia meetup. That's part of the DC meetup. It's smaller. It's in a restaurant. It's kind of more casual. So
Wow.
yeah, I've been doing that for about a year. And it's small, but it's good. It's not a lot of work. It's been a good experience for the most part, except the restaurant we were meeting in closed down, so I had to find a new one. But
bummer. Been there.
yeah.
Yeah. And you co-host a podcast.
Yeah, so I have Hallway Chats, which I co-host with Liam Dempsey, and we started that in June. So we're just around episode 40 or so now. We publish weekly, and we talk to people, say average, everyday people who use WordPress in one way or another. We don't. It's not a technical talk. It's not an educational talk. It's really just to share your story. So it's sort of like a hero press, I would say, of podcasts in a way. It's for people who don't show up on a lot of other podcasts or any other podcasts, and just to let people have a turn to tell their story and talk about themselves for a little while and share their story with other people. Having gone to WordCamps and realized how many just really interesting people there are in the world in this space, it's really fun to give them a little stage and spotlight to talk about themselves and ask them a few questions about sort of the meaning of life in a way. We're a little bit on the deeper side, but it's really been fun, and I've enjoyed it. So, and Liam's great. Liam's a really great guy. So
yeah. And I've been enjoying the show. You guys talk great interviews and get really awesome people on the show. And I certainly am very supportive and enthusiastic about the idea of shining a spotlight on members of the community, particularly those who maybe aren't already in the spotlight that much. It's a big part of why I continue to do this show.
Yeah, yours is similar too. Yeah, there are a lot of people that we don't hear from or see all the time. And there are some great, wonderful, smart, talented, successful people that we do see a lot of. And I love hearing from them and learning from them for sure. So this is just a different outlet, really.
Have you had a podcast before this?
No. We don't have any idea what we're doing, so we don't have any claims to greatness or expertise. We really are it's very grassroots and organic.
Wow. It doesn't sound like you are. It does sound like you know what you're doing.
Oh, well, thanks.
For sure. Thanks. I enjoy the show, and I encourage everybody else to tune into.
Thank you.
Episode. It's good stuff. And after so it's been 9 months or so of doing it, and you're still enjoying it. Any special plans for the future? Any adjustments to the strategy?
Not really. I don't think so. We've talked about possibly having some people who are better known as a 1-year anniversary sort of answer some questions that people have had. But no, nothing really. We're kind of going along with how it is. We're having a good time. So it's a side project, talking about side projects for us. So it's not something that we spend a whole lot of time on. Certainly in the beginning we did. And I think we really spent a lot of time and thought planning it out, what we wanted to talk about and what we wanted the show to be about, the definition of it, how to find people to be on the show and how to handle that. So we've stuck to that pretty closely. So it is a challenge to find guests to be on the show because people aren't there are people who aren't well known. So we are putting the word out on social media, and if anybody wants to be on the show, fill out the form on hallwaychats.com and we'll talk to you. So so no, we're just having a good time with it.
I don't know if it was coincidence or not, but I do believe that months and months ago, I filled out the contact form and recommended some people that I thought
you did
were not as well known as they should be.
Yeah. And we may have, I'm sure we reached out to them. I can't recall if any of them have been on the show.
I think I know at least one of them ended up on the show.
Okay. So there. Yeah. So that's another thing that people can do is recommend others if you don't want to be on it. But yeah, we've had some really interesting people and some really interesting stories and some really moving stories too. So I've really appreciated what people have shared. It's been great.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. So let's see what else is going on here. You've been doing the time tracking. You've been with your business. That's a new fun thing you're working on, and tools is always a fun thing to talk about. Actually, you mentioned liking tools. and listeners always love to hear about tools.
Yeah.
Walk us through a little bit of like your key tools for your business.
Yeah. I've written a lot about it. So I was telling you, I just launched a website. I split off my content because I had written a number of blog posts about Chrome extensions and productivity tools that I love. And so I split that off and put it on a separate website because I really want to do more with that sharing. I think I love to share what I use, and everybody thinks that what they use is the best, or you're distracted by shiny objects and somebody mentions something and you kind of, it's like the dog with the squirrel. You're like, oh, something else new. And so trying to keep that under control, but I'd love to have a repository for my favorite things and ideas from other people, and then to see how that evolves over time. Because I look at what I wrote a couple of years ago about my favorite extensions, and some of them I'm not using anymore because I've replaced them with better ones and that type of thing. So I think Gmail is probably my favorite and least favorite tool, but there, I love making Gmail work for me. So I love using extensions that allow me to track my time within it, to create tasks for my employees within it, to make templates and canned responses, to push messages off to the future so that they're not distracting me. So that I love managing Gmail. I had I had a little side business a few years ago, well, many years ago, when I was still sort of in the stationery business, because I've always been super organized and type A personality. I don't know, my desk behind me, not looking as organized as usual, but I'm pretty much obsessed with organizing, and it's occurred to me that I had a little home organizing business for a short while. It's called You Organized, all in one word. Clever. But so I find that instead of organizing stuff now, I'm organizing my computer, my digital stuff. And I love that feeling. So I like to share some of those tools with people and hear what they're using as well to keep themselves organized and productive and efficient and all those things. And there's so many tools out there. You could get really unproductive just trying them all out. So trying to organize the organizing tools is type A, but
you mentioned separating your content, which I think can open the door to a topic here, and maybe rabbit trail a couple ways. But you took some content that you were formerly writing on your agency blog, and you moved it over to your personal blog because the nature of the content you said is not, really suiting the audience very well anymore. So let's start authoring that content in this place where it can be tailored to the right people. There's probably a lot of people who should consider that. How did you get to that point?
So it started because I took Rebecca Gill's SEO Mastermind course last fall.
Okay.
And so I was really hesitant to learn SEO because it intimidated the heck out of me. And I did it because I wanted to understand it. I had been outsourcing it for a while for the very few clients who were interested in it or wanted to pay for it, but I never really understood it all too well. As a matter of fact, I'm going to publish a blog post tomorrow about this, but I thought, this is revealing my complete ignorance, but in Yoast, where there's a focus keyword, I thought if I put a focus keyword in there, that was going to tell Google that was the keyword that my page was about. Like, I didn't realize that was just a tool, right? Of course, the meta description and the SEO title, that actually does get built into the meta of the page.
Right.
But, it used to be many years ago that your meta keywords were what Google would search for. So I assumed
that was a while ago.
Right. I assumed that the focus keyword was related to that and felt like such an idiot. I mean, I was never using that for my clients because I wasn't doing SEO, but when I first looked at that was my impression. And so, it was like a light bulb going off that wasn't related at all. And I'm sure I'm not the only one who has that. At least I hope not.
Sure you're not. Wow.
Stupid. So anyway, so I was doing her mastermind course, and we were supposed to practice on a website. So I thought I'd practice on my own, which was really intimidating and kind of silly, because trying to optimize a web design agency's website for keywords like web design is, pretty futile and frustrating. But
Good
when I
luck.
was looking at what content on my site was ranking, and what was analyzing the content on my site, I realized that a lot of it had really nothing at all to do with web design and what my potential clients would be looking for. So I decided that I really did need to. I had a lot of great content on there, but it wasn't really relevant to that audience. And so I made the decision and just finally went through with it this past week to move it to a website that was just branding under my name. And because I'm doing more speaking at WordCamps and I like to talk about business stuff. And Sarah Dunn and I started this Slack channel when Carrie Dill shut down office hours, which was really where we love to talk about running our own businesses, running our own freelance or solopreneur, entrepreneur stuff. Was all, loved what Carrie started there, and what she's doing now with her new project is really exciting too, because there's such a huge demand for resources for people who are working alone or starting their own businesses. So Sarah has been a huge inspiration also with all that she's been doing with her own brand and her specializing niche that she's doing. So I think that was in the back of my mind as well, how to separate out Design TLC from Claeys. And then I also have Nice Work too. So I have that, which, maybe someday one or the other will merge, into each other. Who knows? So I wanted just to make my productivity stuff separate. I have no idea if that's going to become a business, but it's just a passion of mine. I like to write about it. So
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a funny thing how many of us get a lot of experience in our craft and then have some kind of inclination to turn around and share it, which is a wonderful inclination to have, and a big part of this culture that we're a part of, this WordPress community. Turn around and share with the people who, in the position you used to be in. That's something I always stand by.
Yeah.
But like how that plays into our professional life, that gets weird. Like, what do we do with it?
Right.
Do we just, do it in our spare time? Do we make it like a part of our professional life and helping promote our brand? Is it something that we're purely doing to serve others, or are we kind of trying to market ourselves and make a name for ourselves and build our reputation? Or are we monetizing it directly in some way through our speaking and our online course and selling an ebook or something, or sponsorships for our podcasts and so on? Like, how does our interest in sharing the knowledge we've accrued play into our professional life? We all solve it different ways.
Yeah.
How do you feel about it?
I was just going to say, what do you think about that?
I asked you first.
I mean, I think it's great that other people do it. I don't personally have an interest in that right now. I feel, launching terraclays.com as a thing is really, for me, and I'm fortunate that I don't have to make it into something that's a moneymaker. Hallway chats is similar. It's not something that we're looking to turn into any kind of a profitable thing. That's, I know, not good business perhaps, but I think for me, I'm really fed by validation and by sharing. Like you said, I think I love to connect with people about things that I like to talk about. When my kids were little, talk to the other moms about our favorite grocery stores or whatever. It's just a way to build a community, is talking about things that work for you. And so whether that becomes something that I monetize, I don't have any plan for that. Honestly, I don't know how I would do that. I could consult or something like that, but I don't have any training in it. I don't want to be a business coach or anything like that. That's not at all my thing. But
Sure,
it's just a side, what do you call a side hustle, side business, not a hustle, a side project. That's what you called it. Yeah,
sure.
it's a side project. It's just something I like to do. So,
I think there's a lot of different ways to look at it for sure. And when you are out speaking, you're probably doing a few things at once. Really, you really are helping other people,
mhm.
and you really are also reinforcing your brand and building your reputation,
Right.
exposing you to new audiences. So, um, I mean, like, how do you classify that? Do you think of it in your mind like I'm going out to volunteer and help people, or I'm going out as uh, a task related to my professional life and my and growing my business? I'm going on a speaking tour. Uh,
Yeah, I think it's getting outside my comfort zone to some degree, doing something that is challenging and adds variety. Like, that's what a side project is, as you were talking about, I think, is doing something different. You build websites all the time for a few years, and you see what other people are doing and talking about, and it's interesting to give it a try. I never really thought about speaking at anything before, and one of the guys at the local meetup said, "Hey, you should talk about Genesis. You seem to really have a lot to say about it, and when we're talking, so you should talk about it, do a lightning talk." And so it starts there, and then you say, "Oh, that wasn't so bad," and you move on. But it scares me, and I say stupid things, and I make mistakes, and so I hate that feeling. But again, it takes you out of your comfort zone, and that's how we grow. And yeah,
I
what do
love
you?
that. I love getting out of my comfort zone, and I love inspiration for that. And you are a great inspiration for that. Actually, you gave a talk last year that I sat on, and I was like, "This is it. This is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm trying to do." You give a talk in Miami, and it
Oh
was
yeah,
like, "This is everything that I'm trying to come up with and get outside of the box
yeah.
somehow."
Oh, that's
And
nice.
I
Thanks.
just I loved it. I loved it.
Thanks.
Not
Thanks.
something that I see very often, so I was just tickled to observe it. Um, is it on WordPress TV, your Miami session?
I don't know if that one is. That was my, I think that was a buddy camp talk, maybe.
Oh,
Was
you're
that?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So, I'm not sure, but I'm
yeah.
speaking at Miami in a couple weeks. So,
Sure.
are you
Yeah.
going to Miami
Not this
this
year.
year?
No.
Are you speaking at any word camps coming up?
I'll be at my fair share, I think, at WordCamps, mostly in the Midwest. There's a high density of WordCamps in
Yeah, you
in
guys
the
have a
Great Lakes
lot.
area. We
Yeah.
do. Michigan has 4, Ohio has 4, there's Chicago and Milwaukee and Toronto and all that stuff. All that's pretty close by.
When was your first word camp talk? Do you remember?
That would have been WordCamp North Canton in 2014.
Okay. So yeah, you've been doing this for a good long time. Do you
I
keep
was just
track?
I was
Do you
just
keep
gonna
track?
say I'm still a rookie. I'm just
No,
getting
that's
started.
not too bad. How
Yeah.
many have you given? Do you know?
More than 25.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So in 4 years or less than 4 years, you've given, so that's 6, you're doing like every other month or so?
Uh, maybe.
Wow, that's
There's been
impressive.
a few camps that I did multiple at, like
Oh, yeah, yeah.
2 years in a row at Columbus. I did 3 presentations for some reason, but I don't know. The Columbus Word Camp was
Yeah.
always funny somehow, and some of those were by chance.
Do you duplicate talks? Or are they all new?
On occasion,
Yeah.
not too close by audience, and not usually after it's gone online,
Okay.
as a rule.
Yeah.
But
Do you have
I like iterating, so I do find it helpful sometimes to continue to iterate on a topic or presentation. Because
do you have a favorite?
most of the time after I get off the stage, I'm like, oh, that could have been better. I could have done that better.
Yeah. Do you
I
have a
consider
favorite
that.
subject matter or a favorite talk that you've given?
Yeah, probably. It's so many topics. I've really been poor at like finding my like focus because I've talked about a lot of different things. Um, I spoke at Pressnomics and gave a lightning talk last year, and that went pretty well. Got good feedback from that,
What was
and
it? What was the topic?
something about iterating on products and being a little more strategic about the choices we make in our release cycles.
Okay.
I don't remember very much of it, but I remember like rehearsing it a little bit and feeling like, yeah, I nailed it.
It's cool.
Which, you know, I only
That's
feel
good.
now and then.
Economics, that's a big one.
Yeah. Yeah, that was really fun. Also one that wasn't recorded, so
Uh,
you'll just have to take my word for it.
I will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. How many presentations have you given at WordCamps?
Not that many. Maybe 4, maybe. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. But enjoying it enough to like continue doing so.
Yeah, I think so. It takes a lot of time, so I think it's when I look at my planning, my goals, that's does take some time out, and I'm also not really good at it yet. I want to keep getting better, and
That's how I feel.
yeah,
Jeez.
but you can do that by practicing. I think maybe I need to script them more, so I
Absolutely.
stick to the script a little bit more without reading it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
That's why I
practicing.
joined a Toastmasters club a year and a half
Oh yeah.
ago for that
Yeah.
reason.
Has it helped you, do you think, with your talks?
I think it has. I think that I started to catch on that doing a talk like 4 or 5 or 6 times a year is not quite enough practice to um, progress at the rate that I want to.
Right.
I need weekly practice, and even that, it's like slow and steady, working on my flaws, my little bad habits, and there are some of them that I still, every time I give a speech now, I'm still hearing some of the same feedback, and it's driving me crazy that I can't get over some of my my own little flaws.
Mm.
But practice is really the best thing that you can have.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's a good question. Like, is some of us, do a lot of speaking, but should ask ourselves at times, how worthwhile is this a part of what we do? Because doing a good presentation, it can be quite time consuming. It really can. And so if someone like yourself, it's probably worth it if you enjoy it. But if it's a chore, and it could very well just be a drain. I've
Yeah.
seen that for some people.
I think it's one of those decisions that I'll make after I've done a couple more. But I like going to WordCamp, so part of me is sort of like, well, if I'm going to go to Miami, I might as well try to speak, and if I can speak there, then I'll definitely go. So in some ways, it's kind of like, if I apply to speak and I don't get it, so it's motivation to make it more valuable in some way.
Sure, sure.
But I think attending is way easier, and so yeah. But you get to go to the speaker dinner, so there's that too.
I always love the speaker dinner. Yeah.
They give out really nice speaker gifts at WordCamp Lancaster too.
Did
George
they?
did a great job there. It's a little camp, but they have nice swag and food and great people. And I'd never been to WordCamp Lancaster before, but I'd heard it's wonderful, and it was great.
Wow. All right. Well,
Yeah,
that is good. Good to hear.
yeah.
What other events are on your horizon for the rest of this year?
Mhm. Just WordCamp Miami for now. Hopefully there will be a WordCamp DC in the fall, and I like going to Philly, and hopefully go to WordCamp US again. I like going to those, so we'll see. So
That's good.
thinking about budgeting and all that kind of stuff. So
Mhm.
if I get some more work, then I probably can. Right now, I don't have any big, huge projects on the horizon, so probably would be hard to justify it if I don't get something. But it's only early March, so I've got to put the post out. We'll see what happens.
Sure, sure. Then you get the big project and you're just too busy to go. That's all.
That is another thing. Yeah,
Yeah,
finding the time for
finding the
sure.
time.
Yeah. But I love going to word camps. I've met so many great people there, and I've made good friends through through word camps and through Slack, the combination of the two. So it's my favorite things. Word camp junkie.
That's a good thing to be. I like that. I am myself as well.
Yeah, you
I
can't
love
beat
it.
it. You can't beat it.
looking ahead a little bit, like forecast for us a little, what you foresee your business being in a few years from now. Like things go really well, your optimistic hopes, it all kind of like comes through for you. What does your business look like in a few years?
Yeah. It's a tricky question probably for anybody. I don't know that I really want much change. I feel bad saying I don't wanna grow into this big thing. I'd like to be smarter and do better work, but I don't really I'm like, income projections, all that kinda stuff. It's not as important to me as satisfaction and feeling like less like my business is reacting to stuff and that I feel like I'm being, kind of pulled around by the nose.
Okay.
I love what I do, and I do it too much, and so trying to get a hold of this whole process that I'm in of trying to get a hold of my time is in order to try to diversify my time so that it's not just spent, dilly-dallying around in the back end of WordPress and tweaking client sites that are old that have, you know, crappy stuff on them that are just should be fixed. I have a hard time with that, but if I'm not getting paid to do it, it's kind of a waste of my time to be spending time. If the website's working, then, if it's just bothering me because of my perfectionist nature, trying to go back to some of those sites and go to the clients and let them know that it's time to update and that's, so I would say this year is sort of a resetting year for me. I'm an empty nester, my kids have moved on to college, and so I'm looking at this as a little breather to figure out what I wanna do and whether I want to grow, um, as an agency or whether I just wanna continue to just build websites for people. That's something I think I have to figure out. I need to do some more of the bigger and more strategic jobs in order to figure out if I like that. I think that's pretty much the key. So that's what I'm
Mm.
on right now is just a couple of redos with current clients that include some strategic goal setting, keywords, that kind of stuff to see if I like that, and ongoing maintenance that includes more than just updating their plugins and backing their sites up. Because that honestly, I don't think that's a long-term strategy for any of us who are doing that because it's going to be much more automated with all the managed WordPress hosting that's coming out. And so I think it's going to be a harder sell to tell clients that they have to pay me $50 a month to go in and update their plugins. And especially if it's a small site, if it's a small website that they never do anything to, they should just be on Squarespace or something like that then, or be on managed WordPress hosting where they don't have to know or think about updates. If you're on Squarespace, nobody says ever anything about updating your site. It's done for you. So that's an argument that a client might have going down the road when they're trying to decide whether or not they're going to use WordPress, I think. And that's why this managed WordPress stuff is becoming more automated. Liquid Web does that for you. They go and update your plugins for you and let you know if anything is happening as a result of an update. So
Mhm.
I think that's in terms of the future of what my agency does, that's definitely something that's going to probably fall out of the mix. So how do you replace that with another way to have ongoing relationship with your clients?
Mm.
Yeah.
Important puzzle to solve.
Yeah.
Remarkable level of awareness and transparency in your description of like where you think you are right now and how just aware you are of the unanswered questions for the future, what those questions are. But it sounds optimistic knowing what the big questions are and what can be done to find the answer to those questions, namely like tackle some of those larger projects and see how that goes.
Yeah. It's all learning. And I'm fortunate that my husband has a job that has benefits. And so I don't have a lot of pressure to, anymore anyway, I don't have a lot of pressure to have a certain income, and so I can kind of explore what I wanna do and what I want my life to be about and how I wanna be helpful in the world, and I'm 50 years old. So how, how much longer am I going to be working in this kind of thing? And when do I want to be officially retired or any of that? That's all coming into play, but I don't have the answer for you right now because I'm going through that process. We'll have to talk to me in a year and see where everything is.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's funny that you say that you feel bad about, well, you started feeling bad about not knowing the answer to that question. Like it's something that you should know, or feeling bad about not wanting to grow,
Yeah.
I think you said. And that strikes me as so surprising, and yet I understand this feeling like you should want to grow. We struggle with that too with our business. Like how big do we want to grow? Do we want to just keep hiring and keep hiring and keep hiring as we grow? Just any point in controlling that?
And then you're not maybe doing what you like. I had a little chat with Amy Masson on Slack the other day, and she has a really successful company, a really successful agency. And as you grow, you become more mired in running your business and setting up processes and less building the websites, which is still super satisfying. I love getting into the design and setting things up and presenting it to clients. And then I like going and implementing it and writing the CSS and tweaking this and that. It's a satisfying feeling. So do I want to just do that? Do I just want to be an implementer, or do I really want to do more? It's it's a good combination right now because I can kind of still do both. So I think I like it that way.
It's almost like we should be forecasting something different. Like in a few years, I want to be 3x happier than I am now.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah. What else is in my life? What if this went away? Like you think about what if I stopped doing this? What else is there? This is all I do, right? This is all I do. It's like my community, everything I do is revolving around this. So how can I be in my community locally and do something, volunteer to help kids learn to read, or I'm learning to play the piano. And so I'm going through a midlife crisis, Kyle.
Yeah.
A lot of introspection goes on when you're at this phase in your life. So, but I'm grateful for WordPress because it is a lot of what I do. So, and I learned a ton. I learned so much. So it's a really engaging community. I love our business of WordPress Slack group. It's the only one I really pay any attention to anymore. And everybody on there is awesome. We support each other. And so that's been awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. It has. I love it. I think it's super cool.
I hope some of them are watching or will watch later.
I hope so too. And if anybody watches this, say so in the Slack channel, so we can know. As we wrap up, Tara, do you one of my last questions here? Do you have any good? And you should. I think you shouldn't falter on this question. Do you have any good recommendations for me for guests I should get on the show in the future?
Yeah. Well, I mentioned Amy Masson. She's great. Have you had her on before?
Nope. There you go. You are doing good so far.
She's great, and she has a business with her sister. And then Michelle Coe is a local has a local agency here in Virginia, Northern Virginia. Also, I've gotten to know her through the local community and through the Slack channel. So she's pretty wonderful too. And let's see who else. Andrew. He is in a mastermind with me, and he's also on our Slack team. What's his company called? I'm drawing a blank now. I'll send you his information separately.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah. So Andrew Gregory is his name. He's in Pittsburgh.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. Good guy.
Yeah. Very helpful.
Yeah.
Well, Tara, it's about time to wrap up.
All right.
Head out and get some dinner. Thank you for joining me on the show.
Thanks.
And thanks everybody for tuning in.
Yeah, thanks. Great talking to you. I hope to see you in person again soon.
I'm sure that'll happen. We'll figure it out.
All right. Talk to you back. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.